Ooby-doo, it's everyone's favorite boomer and vintage lens enthusiast. I'm revisiting Nikon lens Series E, zoom 36-72, constant 1.35. It's on the Sony Alpha 5000. And you know, being a Canon guy, a self-possessed, confessed camera guy, Canon guy, Sony is now one of the best deals out there. 20 megapixels, takes fantastic pictures with all different lenses. I got this for 125 bucks. Now they're like 250. That's scary. That's really scary. But they're nice cameras. And but I want to really talk about the zoom lens. I bought this cheap, $70, a couple other lenses, won't go into all that. And I finally got around to testing it at the park, doing rocks and blocks and trees and lakes. And I said, you know, it's time for me to go to a town, sort of like Jeremiah decided it was time to go to a town. I gotta admit, I didn't particularly like it, but, you know, it was a photo expedition, so it was bearable. Look at that, it only focuses down to 4 feet. Oh my God. This is the telephoto section. That's the wide angle. Look, it has a depth of field. Stops on the f/22. It's pretty decent. So for this photo shoot, I went to the town of Warwick, which is like a 10-minute drive from my house. And I went there around 5 o'clock on a Good Friday, and there's no one around, but there are many lights on, like in all the quaint stores and everything. And I said, what would this thing do in available light? You know, existing light. I'm not going to pop a flash on Main Street in this town. The police would probably come and investigate me. So I boosted this to 2000, and I set it at 3.5, and I was using shutter speeds between 1/125th of a second and 1/15th of a second. Well, the 1/15th of a second, I scratched it because there's too much unintentional camera movement. And even ones that were like a 1/30th or 1/40th, I think there's one or two I scratched also. What this camera does is sort of, if you expose for highlights, well, then the dark areas get really dark, but they come back really good. And often I didn't really expose for highlights 100%. I ended up adjusting the levels. And there's really not too many steps in the highlights. They're sort of blown out. So that's the camera, not the lens. The lens does have some flare. I was using a lens hood. With the vintage lenses, I'm always adamant about that. Must use a lens hood. In fact, I gotta buy a couple more. And I'm gonna buy a close-up lens for this also. But enough of that. Let's look at the pictures. This is the town of Warwick, New York. It's a quaint tourist town. His main street, looking at the stores, 5 o'clock in the morning. I gotta press that point home. Shooting at 2000 ISO. And these are the results. And they're very reasonable results. I really like them. This is a nice lens. It could do daytime photography, and it could also do nighttime photography in a pinch. Is it ideal? No, but it works really good. This lens has a lot of fine detail, low distortion. I went to town just so I could get some rectilinear shots of cubes and rectangles, and very low distortion. Most of the pictures I took at 36 millimeter, and I didn't see any distortion at all. And at 72, even less. But let's look at the pictures, and you could come to your own conclusion. What do modern lenses have over vintage or classic glass? Well, modern lenses have autofocus and probably better coatings. Otherwise, there's no advantage of having a modern lens at all. So this is the Nikon Series E, which is their economy version. The 36 to 72 millimeter f3.5 constant aperture. It focuses down to 4 feet. It stops down to f22. That's about it. But it works well. What makes the lens work well? The optical quality. This has excellent optical quality. This is done. This cathedral-looking stained window thing was done at 36 millimeters. Wide open at f3.5, mind you. And this is a 1:1 crop after 20 megapixel sensor. Damn, that's a good lens. That's an excellent lens. I walked up to this toll gates picture and I focused on it. And I took a picture, and here's a 1:1 crop. Look at that. That's great. Wide open, f3.5. Here's the bokeh from that. That's the infinity target. That's the street, maybe a couple 100 feet away. There's the building. I moved up a little on this picture. I crossed the river to get this picture. Look at that's the center. Wow, that's great. That is fantastic. For $70, you want to get yourself, this is a corner. Only slightly blurry, but maybe it's out of focus because it's at a different distance. Here's another wide angle shot. It's great. The 36 millimeter is capable. And it's one of those lenses where you got to back up or move away. Get closer. Left, right, something like that. That's what you have to do with this lens. And then even the telephoto, sometimes you may have to back up, but mostly, even with the telephoto, you may want to step forward a little bit. But you can get great pictures with it. I went to the park and I did rocks and blocks and trees and lakes. I said, well, I'll go to the town and look at the lack of distortion in this lens. No pincushion that I could see. No barrel distortion. There's some distortion of perspective. If the camera's not parallel to all these rectangles, they get distorted. And everything is all crooked there anyway to begin with. All the storefronts are different. Some are old and been upgraded. Some are new. Some are just old. All different types. Wood, brick. And notice that the lines stay straight. All right, maybe they're crooked because your perspective, if I line up on the vertical, then the horizontal is out. If I line up on horizontal, then the vertical is out. That's just the way it is because you're not perpendicular. You're not at right angles to your subject. So, of course, you're going to get perspective distortion. Or if something is far enough away, then that minimizes perspective distortion. That's a 1:1 crop from the 36 millimeter. Yeah, I buy a zoom lens, and what do? I either use the short end or the long end, almost nothing in between. I think it was only marked at 50 millimeters, no other markings. And you'd be amazing how shallow the depth of field is at a 36 millimeter at f3.5. But you still get a pretty decent wide view. So what is it? If you take half of that, it's 18. So that's 40 plus 14. So that's that'd be like a 54 millimeter lens. It'd be almost a normal lens. And you know what? Normal lenses are actually wide angle lenses, in my mind, in practical usage. And it's a fine performer at night. And paired with the Sony Alpha 5000, sure, that's a great camera, no doubt about it. And this has come from a Canon guy, a Canon camera guy. I used to sing the praises of Canon cameras. Well, for Sony making a cheap camera with a lot of features, they beat everybody. Everybody. I gotta say that. Sony, the 5000 series is an excellent camera for taking pictures. Is it arcane? Is it quirky? Sure, but it takes good pictures. If you slap a good lens on it, you're going to get good results. That's all I got to say. I mean, look at these pictures. Oh, this is ISO 2000 at f3.5, from 1/25th of a second to 1/15th of a second. It's, look at it, that's excellent. And it looks like it's got character. Maybe it's a little flary, you know, the coatings, or maybe that's what they minimize on, the coatings. But, you know, it gives an atmospheric look to everything. It was slightly hazy, but not very much where the stores were. You know, there's no heavy mist or even a light mist. The rusty goat. Oh, I had to stop down to 1/1000th of a second to get this picture. At 72 millimeters and f3.5. This is really dark. I mean, when I took this picture, it was dark. It was hard to see any of this detail. So when I snapped this picture and I did an autocorrect on it, it came out this color, so I left it. Did I alter reality? Maybe it really looked like that. I mean, if you went there during the day and the sun was shining on it. So this camera had enough sensitivity to bring that out. That's pretty cool, isn't it? At f3.5 and 1/80th of a second. Yeah, there's some quaint shops there. It's a whole quaint town. It's a tourist trap place. A lot of eateries and bars and pool halls and stuff. So, and they have festivals there throughout the year. So it's always worth it checking out Warwick, New Jersey. Oh, slightly, I like to call it Warlock, New Jersey. Oh, New York, what am I thinking about? We have nothing to do with Warwick, New York. We just live next to it. That's all there is to it. So you just keep that separate, you know what I'm saying? But it's you know, you want to do photo ops, you want to get some good pictures, that's where you go. Warwick, New York.